Okay, here we go. We're going to do problem 5-6 from the Jimbavo text. That's page 198 for those of you following along at home. And we are Dunworth Canoes, so a very exciting company that's going to use both full costing and variable costing. So, first thing we always have to do when doing our full costing income statement is figure out the cost per unit. And in full costing, also known as absorption costing, we have direct materials, direct labor, variable manufacturing overhead, and fixed manufacturing overhead, all in our product cost. So for our example, we have 2 years, 2008 and 2009, and for direct materials, it's $40 each year. For direct labor, we have $25 each year. And for variable manufacturing overhead, we have $35 each year. That's the easy part. The hard part is for fixed manufacturing overhead, the fixed amount remains the same in total, but it's going to vary with the number of units we produce. So in 2008, we make 16,000 units. That's going to give us $33.75 per unit for fixed manufacturing overhead. In 2009, we still have 540,000 as our total, but we're going to produce only 12,000 units. So that's going to increase our fixed manufacturing overhead cost to $45 per unit. We bring that into our total cost per unit by simply adding them. And for 2008, we get a total cost per unit of $133.75. For 2009, we now have a total cost per unit of $145. So as you can see, by making less units, we increased our total cost per unit while everything else stayed the same. So that's the first step in making a full costing income statement. We have to get this cost per unit because we're going to use that in our cost of goods sold calculation. So let's move this down. Okay. In 2008, we sold 14,000 units. And our selling price was $400 per unit. So that will give us sales of $5.6 million. 2009, it's the same situation. We sold 14,000 units and our selling price is still $400 per unit, so our sales will still be $5.6 million. Let's go through 2008 and get the net income, and then we'll come back to 2009 because cost of goods sold is going to change for the next year. So in 2008, we sold 14,000 units, and our cost per unit, which we had just recently calculated, was $133.75. So that gives us a cost of goods sold of $1,772,500. So that is our cost of goods sold for 2008, which leaves us a gross margin of $3,727,500. We're told from the problem that we have some fixed selling general administrative costs. So in full absorption costing, that goes below gross margin because we're separating things on the basis of what they actually do. And this is a non-manufacturing cost, so we want to keep that separate for our manufacturing costs. So our fixed selling general administrative costs are $175,000, which leaves us with a net income of $3,552,500. Okay, so that's our 2008 income statement. Let's continue back to 2009. So in 2009, we still sold 14,000 units, but we only made 12,000. And the remaining 2,000 units are from leftover 2008 units. So they get the 2008 cost per unit. That cost stays attached to the units that are in the ending inventory. So the first 2,000 units from 2009 are going to be $133.75 per unit. So that's $267,000 of cost. And then the remaining 12,000 units were actually made in 2009. So they're going to get the 2009 cost per unit, which was $145. And their total cost will be $1,740,000. We add those two costs together to get our cost of goods sold, which is $2,007,000. That number gets inserted into our income statement, and we continue just as we would from 2008. So 5.6 million minus 2,007,000 gives us a gross margin of 3,593,000. And our selling, general, administrative expenses are fixed, and they remain at $175,000. So our net income now is $3,418,000. God love us accountants with our ringy numbers. But as you see, our net income decreased. So in part B, that actually asks us, is this company doing worse in 2009? And the answer is no. They sold the same amount of units, 14,000. They used up some of their inventory from the prior year. So really, the only thing driving this difference in our net income is the fact that there was some 2008 inventory left over with 2008 fixed manufacturing overhead attached to it. So let's move on now to part C, which is variable costing. So just like full costing, we have to start with our cost per unit calculation. And for variable costing, our direct materials is still $40 per unit. Direct labor is still $25 per unit. And variable manufacturing overhead is still $35. But fixed manufacturing overhead is not included, so our cost per unit is going to be $100. And that continues for 2009 as well. So the one benefit of variable costing is you eliminate the impact of production amounts on your cost per unit. Our cost per unit will be $100 for each year. Moving to the actual income statement, in 2008, our sales are still $5.6 million. We sold 14,000 units at $400 a unit. Now, for 2008, our 14,000 units are going to have a cost per unit of $100. So that will be $1,400,000. And that will give us a contribution margin of $4.2 million. Now, our fixed costs stay below the line. So that will be $540,000 for our fixed manufacturing overhead and $175,000 for our fixed selling, general, administrative, giving us a net income of $3,485,000. Let's do 2009. Our sales are still $5.6 million because we still sold 14,000 units at $400 per unit. Our variable cost of goods sold is still $1.4 million because we still have a cost per unit of $100. So our contribution margin also does not change. Fixed manufacturing overhead is still $540,000, and fixed selling, general, administrative is still $175,000. So our net income again will be $3,485,000. And this is one of the benefits of variable costing. It's more rational. We sold the same number of units for the same selling price, and our cost structure did not change. So one would think we would have a similar amount of net income. So it pretty much eliminates the ability to manipulate net income by using your inventories.